Okay, folks, so we're going to be recording today as well. There are some people I know that are not able to join us today. And also the recording is going to help you guys out with something that I'll talk about later on, which is the next steps. This faculty meeting is actually going to be done in two stages. The first stage is today, where we're going to work together as a faculty to talk about effective qualitative feedback and its relationship to the ePortfolio. And then in mid to late June, your second faculty meeting, which I know in the past, the faculties at each one of the campuses have done it in their dean's faculty meetings for Amherst, Buffalo, and Southtowns. We're actually going to do this collaboratively and collectively. So that's actually going to be done in the CIE group, and you'll get more details on that later on. So that's going to be the second stage of this. And as we go through today's meeting, I'll talk about the reasons why we're doing this and why this is so important for the college as we move forward. Purposes of today, we're going to really cover four things over the course of the next 75 minutes. I'm going to try to get you guys out by around 4:45 because I know some of you have classes. I have class tonight at 5 o'clock. So I want to give us all an opportunity to transition into what we need to do over the course of this evening. But really, four things we're going to talk about today. The first is doing a better job of providing qualitative feedback to our students that can complement the quantitative feedback that we give. The data internally here at the college shows that we're doing a lot of assessment, especially here in Western New York. And we're providing a lot of feedback to students about where they stand relative to A, B, C, D, and F. But one of the things that the Noah Levitt survey has shown us, as well as some research done into our usage of the ePortfolio, shows an opportunity for us to provide more qualitative feedback. So that's going to really be the focus of our faculty meeting today. You're actually going to practice today providing some qualitative feedback strategies to students on two sample assessments that you either, if you're connecting remotely, you have had access to. I emailed it out to you yesterday, or if you're at Amherst, Buffalo, or Southtowns, the facilitators helping me out today have hard copies of those sample student work. So you're going to practice providing that qualitative feedback. We're going to talk about some of the current summative assessments that you're using that can be used as potential ePortfolio assignments. And then the last thing we're going to do is talk about ways that we can improve the use of the ePortfolio. Related to today's meeting, the rationale, the newest Noah Levitt survey data is out. The deans received this last week. And one of the things that even the newest Noah Levitt survey shows is that while we've improved system-wide and in Western New York on providing good qualitative feedback to our students, the newest survey still shows that students want more feedback. We've improved in the data the students have generated, but it still shows that this is an opportunity for us, both from a college standpoint and from a regional perspective. And this was something that Bill Wright and some others that Ed Services talked to us about last week, was improving even more so the qualitative feedback that we give to students. Second, the data collected by the college is showing that we're not using the ePortfolio in all courses, and our students, when they get into SOC 225 and NTRN 270, are running into issues where they don't have enough resources to be able to collect and to create their ePortfolios, both in preparation for the internship and also for doing the internship. And I can see the camera at Buffalo, and I can see Tom Welch. Tom, wave at us. I know Tom will tell you that he's had some challenges in teaching SOC 225 and NTRN 270 to make sure that there are enough artifacts that are there for the students to be able to use. So we're going to talk about that today. And then the last thing is we're going to use this as a jumping off point for the discussion boards that you will take part in mid to late June relative to the ways in which we're using the ePortfolio and then also the qualitative feedback that we're giving to students. So those are the overview or the outcomes that we're hoping for today. So let's move forward. The first activity, there's an article that was sent to you via email yesterday, and if the facilitators at Southtowns and at Buffalo can please make sure to distribute a copy of this article. We were able
Chris?
to... Yeah.
Question?
Yeah, we have a question. What is a non-CLP course? Back in your objectives for today's meeting, what is a non-CLP course?
Non-CLP are basically any of the courses that students take here that are not first term. So that is Com 104, English 102, INFT 124, Math 101, and then whatever your first term course is in program. Because as you guys know, as part of curriculum realignment, we're not allowed to use the ePortfolio. We're not allowed to use a lot of technology in those first term courses.
Thanks.
You guys good?
Yep, thank you.
Okay, cool. If the facilitators of the campuses can make sure that you guys have in front of you an article called 20 Ways to Provide Effective Feedback for Learning. We stumbled upon this article about a month and a half ago through some research that we were doing, and it's a great overview of ways in which we can provide feedback to students above and beyond some strategies that we're currently practicing in our courses. So if you have the question handout, hopefully the facilitators at Buffalo and Southtowns can give that out as well. It's that 2-page question sheet. What I'm going to ask you folks to do is to spend the next few moments, drop your eye over that article, 20 Ways to Provide Effective Feedback for Learning, and identify strategies that you're currently using to provide feedback to students, as well as ideas that are there that are not things that you're currently doing, they're not currently part of your practice, but that you would consider incorporating as part of your practice. So take the next few moments. I'm going to put you guys on mute over here at Amherst. And if you guys can drop your eyes over that and outline the ones that you're already doing and the ones that you find interesting that you can consider incorporating into your practice in the future. So why don't you folks take the next few moments and drop your eyes over the article. Okay, folks, I'm going to pull us together. Leah, I see that you're connecting remotely. Would you mind sharing with us, first of all, what some of your findings were? I guess not. Leah, I think you're on. Yeah, I think you put us back on mute.
Hi, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Cool.
Hi, everybody. One of the things that I've been doing a lot of this semester in English 102 and INFT 124 is really giving a lot of chances for students to correct their work before they turn in a final version, which has worked really well as they're learning the new computer skills and things like that. So they have a chance to sort of turn in a rough draft and they get feedback and lots of things like that. So that's been working really nicely.
Great. And what maybe one or two strategies that you saw in there that you would consider incorporating into your practice?
I really liked the idea of the Post-it notes or small notes, particularly for INFT 124, where students are creating projects with lots of steps in class. And instead of having to stand with a student as I individually tell them each item, I could make a quick list and leave it with them to continue working on, and I think that would help in a large class move around quicker and get to more students. So I thought that was a nice idea.
Great. I got Deb in front of me here at Amherst, and she's nodding her head. Deb, you want to talk about the reasons why?
Well, I think the Post-it is, even if you're putting it on a paper you're going to give back to them,
Mm-hmm.
the Post-it note, especially if it's a different kind of shape or something, just adds some color and something that helps it to stand out a little bit.
That's a great point.
So,
Leah, awesome. Thank you for participating.
Thank you.
Allie, I got you on as well remotely. Why don't you share with us one thing that you found that you're doing and one thing that you would like to do?
Well, something that I would like to do, it's kind of both. Something I'd like to do more deliberately is to have more formal individual conferences with the students, which I do already, but just kind of as I'm circulating the room informally. And that works really well, but I'd like to maybe do more with actually setting up a schedule where we have an agenda of things to talk through and things like that. So I kind of see an answer for both.
Great. Allie, one comment to that, and if any of the deans that were at the meeting last week want to pipe up, or Paul, I see you're on as well. One of the things that we talked about going forward with Blended is really rethinking and reconceptualizing how we use SSS time. And not just simply seeing it as something that is office hours if a student wants to show up. But we talked about the idea of really using SSS time more deliberately and basically saying to a student, we need you to show up. Almost pushing it as far as we possibly can from a mandatory standpoint to say, look, you did this on the essay, you got a couple of really good things here, but some areas we want to work on. I want to see you next class during SSS time at 10:20, and we'll sit down and we'll talk about this in more detail. So to your point, Allie, our class time is very valuable. As we go to Blended, it's going to become even more valuable for us. So the way that we can use SSS time is something that nicely bolts onto the classroom time that we've been allocated is a great way for you to do what you're talking about. And Juan's going to share something too. Go ahead.
All right, so just as an example, you may only have a handful of students that you really need to address and make, say, SSS time mandatory for the first 2 weeks of your class. After that, you may only have 1 or 2 that are struggling out of a class, say, of 10. And it becomes productive in a one-on-one session, but you may want to strategize as in, I'd like everybody to come next week because next week during SSS time, we're going to talk about time management because there are a lot of deadlines coming up. I want to ensure that everybody understands, particularly for new students, students who have had long break in education are coming back after 10 years, 15 years, or just adult learners who have never been to college before and they're trying to wrap their mind around, say, a blended or a session or just managing a college workload period. And you can strategize and use those for general purposes, not just those that are specific to the content in your class.
Very well said. Allie, what about the one thing that you'd like to do?
What I'd like to do more with individual conferences.
Oh, okay.
Like setting them up with a formal time for each student.
Gotcha. Awesome. And Lucy, I see that you're on, and then we'll go to the campuses. What was one thing that you're doing and one thing that you want to do?
Okay, what I usually do is feedback. I like to give that back in a timely manner. And also it depends on what we're doing. Like if we're doing competencies, I do it verbally. If it's their competency projects, then it's in the written formats. And then the one thing I would like to do is the same with the one-on-one, sitting down one-on-one with them.
Awesome, and I think there's a great opportunity for us through SSS time. So awesome. Lucy, thank you for participating. I'm going to start here at Amherst because I've got the faculty here in front of me. So from you folks here, what's one thing that you're doing and one thing that you would like to do?
And one thing that I do is make sure it's very timely. So if they gave it to me this class, I make sure it's back to the next class. Sometimes that's to my detriment. That means I'm up until 11 or 12 getting that feedback. Yep. But I insist on doing that in order to help them with the next assignment. One thing I think I'd like to do more of is the Post-it notes and educating them on how to get peer feedback. I think that's a valuable tool that we don't adequately take advantage of all the time.
So Sam, let's go over to South Towns. Anybody that's there who's willing to share one thing that you're doing and one thing that you'd like to do.
Okay. Christian, what we are doing in the PTA program is we have authentic assessment checkpoints. So we actually are meeting with the students. I did have one-on-one student meetings, and it was kind of interesting to see that we shouldn't set them up for longer than 10 minutes. I had a time limit of 15 minutes for the students, so we are doing that. However, what I did discover is that, and what I'd like to incorporate as new, is that learning styles, taking into account learning styles of the students, especially for one student in particular who has come back to me after our checkpoint meeting and really is vague on understanding what feedback actually took place. So it made me think about the fact that she's not an auditory learner and that she's more of a kinesthetic learner, and that the feedback I gave her was all, I was talking to her, we were talking back and forth, we were having a conversation, but she didn't retain a lot of it. So great. Incorporating learning styles.
Awesome. Anybody else at South Towns that wants to share?
Sure, I will. I already have the face-to-face interactions to give feedback with students planned into my courses, and that's worked pretty well. Going off of what Maureen was saying about note-taking, I have notes written on their papers, as well as we talk about what the things that they need to change for future submissions of the projects. But having the student actually take notes, so then in addition to us talking about it, and they've even said this to me, they're like, I can't read your doctor's handwriting, and then it'll be like, they're not really sure what I meant by it. So having them put it into their own words should help both kind of engage them more into that face-to-face interaction, as well as have them get more of it so that when they made the modifications, they know what to do. The one other thing that I think I want to start doing is I've noticed behaviors, or I notice, and then something good that they're doing. This is good. I mean, really focusing on the positive behaviors as opposed to just saying this is what you're doing wrong. And that can start creating a different type of dynamic for the classroom where people actually want to be there because then they feel like they're doing well. So I thought that was good too.
Awesome. Sam, thank you very much. So let's go over to Buffalo. Alex, do you have a couple faculty members there that want to talk about what they're doing and what they want to do?
Who would like to share? They're all fighting over who wants to talk. Kevin, was that a hand or just a
just trying to
shrug? Okay.
Speak up.
Okay. I guess I'll share one that I'm already doing that I feel has been really effective is number 17, give genuine praise. I think that our students, like the article said, can definitely tell when you're being genuine, and I think that goes a long way to building positive relationships and trust and respect with the students, to show that you respect them and that you're giving them more detailed feedback, something not just general like, oh, okay, that was good. Taking the time to really go into more detail so that they understand what they did well and they can do that again. I think that from what I've heard from my students, they appreciate that. So that's something I think I've been doing. And kind of going along with that, number 18, I think that just takes it a step further by being more specific and using, like Sam shared, that phrase, I noticed. So I'm sure the students would really like to see that we're taking notice of what they're doing and that their hard work is paying off.
Great. Alex, any other volunteers from Buffalo before we go forward?
Kevin.
Yeah, thanks for your talk.
Yay.
I think number 19 I've been doing, providing a model or an example. I really like to use the I do, we do, you do approach. And on top of that, I'd like to provide them with what I'm looking for so they know exactly the type of work that I'm looking for, the length, the style. And it also helps, again, if I demonstrate it, we do one together, and then they can go and work on it by themselves. But they also have that hard copy to look back at it and say, okay, this is what it should be like. If I'm not with them or if they have any questions, then I'm not around to discuss it with them. So I think that's one that I do use. And we're talking about the I notice ones. I've never used the I notice, and I think that would be really beneficial to building up morale. I noticed that that you improved on something or that you changed something that we talked about, and that would go a long way. So I think that's something that I would like to incorporate.
Great. And Kevin, the first comment that you made about the I do, you do, we do, that's a great technique, especially when we're talking about scaffolding, the 90%, 80%, 70% environment. So that's a great example as well. Good job, guys. Okay, so let's move forward. So we had a chance to study really from a conceptual level the idea of providing effective feedback. So your facilitators, or if you're connecting remotely, you were given 2 sample assessments, just the background on those 2 assessments. Both of those were ePortfolio items. Both of those were items that students had uploaded at the end of last semester for 2 courses. One was Math 201, and the other one was an HTHS course. So these are live student documents that were assessed at the end of last semester. I've anonymized them. I've taken their names off to protect the innocent. So what I'd like you to do is I want you to pick from one of them. I've given you 2. You can pick from one. You can go down the math route if you'd like to and look at the quantitative and scientific reasoning project that's provided. You have a copy of the assessment to begin with, and then as you get to the end of the document, you have a sample of the PowerPoints that were submitted. Or what you can do is take a look at the HTHS assignment. Now, I purposely did not give you the assignment sheet for that because really what it is, it's just simply a summary, and then it's an analysis of the ideas that were provided there. Now, I also purposely did not give you rubrics because we're not here to score what the student has done. That was very purposeful on my part. Instead, what I want you to imagine is that a student came to you during student support services time, and it may be for your class, it may not be for your class, but the student wants you to provide some general feedback as an academic professional about what they've done. So you can pick from one of those two assessments, and what I'd like you to do on that question sheet, you'll see it's under question number 3, is to just bullet out, or you can handwrite the whole thing, it's up to you. What exactly sort of written feedback would you give this student based upon what he or she submitted? So I'm going to give you folks about the next 10 minutes to review one of those two assessments, and then after you get done doing that, think about the strategies that we talked about, things you're doing, things that you'd like to do, and some other strategies that were there, and draft out what you would write down to that student relative to their feedback. So I'll give you the next 10 minutes to do that. I'm going to put you on mute, and then we'll pull us all together.
So again.
Good question here from Amherst. We're going to work on this first portion individually. Okay, folks, so let's start remotely first. So, Lucy, why don't we start with you? Which assessment did you select, and what would be some of the feedback you would have given to the student?
Okay, I chose the math one. I don't know why I did that, but I would do some modeling before, like in PowerPoint and Excel. Like, for example, the second slide, the introduction slide, where she has, or the student has everything all in one paragraph. I would just give some comments on breaking those down like into separate bullets and that, all the points that she's going to go over. But then she did do it on the other slides too, so she did better towards the end. But just like in the beginning, just breaking down those paragraphs.
So that's a great observation, Lucy, because first of all, you see it where she did it later on, and you can use it as a model, not only you modeling for her, but also where you can model things that she already did that she could use in earlier or later slides.
So I noticed that.
Go ahead, Deb.
So yeah, I mean, one of the types of feedback then could be that I noticed that later in your presentation, you used a lot of bullet points, and maybe we can apply that to slide number 2 and slide number 4 a little bit more.
Absolutely. Very excellent comment. Lucy, anything else you want to throw out there?
No.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Allie, what about you? Which one did you pick and what did you say?
I was looking mostly at the math one as well, and had kind of very similar remarks that I would probably at some point show them some different types of PowerPoint presentations and have them respond to things of how things are laid out, different fonts, and she has a few things more towards the end with like where the numbers are really, really tiny, and most likely we wouldn't be able to read those, but maybe if she hadn't seen that, she wouldn't have really known. So to be an audience member and to see a slide like that and see how they would react to it. So I guess it's kind of modeling as well.
Great. So kind of put her in the position of being, doing an audience analysis and thinking through how the audience would perceive it versus just simply her trying to communicate the information.
Mm-hmm.
That's great. Thank you. Leah, what about you? What'd you pick and what'd you say?
Hi, I also looked at the PowerPoint, and I would probably either before the assignment or at this point when the PowerPoint sort of turned in, as an example, maybe a rough draft, I would provide them with some tips about good PowerPoints in general, things like sizes that are readable, how many words per slide, and also things like pulling it up on the big screen, because once you see your work on that big screen in a classroom, you really get a sense of it better than on this computer screen. So I think doing things like that could help them really see the changes that need to be made.
That's a great point, because if we meet with the students in a classroom, it would really give us an opportunity to basically plug it in, have the students bring it up, and take a look and see how it would appear to the audience. So that's a nice build on to what Allie had mentioned. Great, Leah. Thanks.
Thanks.
And let's start over with Buffalo, and then we'll work our way over to Southtowns. Buffalo, which you can pick one volunteer. What did they choose? Which of the assessments and what feedback did they give?
Kevin would like to tell us.
I also did the student loan one, and I was looking at the requirements, and some of the requirements on here were grammar, and there were some grammatical issues, especially on the side of my expected salary after graduation. The first sentence doesn't really flow. Also, consistency within the bullet points. I was noticing, and the only thing that didn't quite go back to the requirements is I didn't notice any in-text citation. So those would be some things that I would point out, kind of speak with the student on, making sure things are consistent, making sure that they are paying attention to requirements.
Great. It's a nice way to kind of build on some things that the students are learning in some of those first term courses as well. So that's terrific. Awesome. Thanks, Buffalo. Let's go to Southtowns. Sam, what did you guys pick, and what feedback did you give?
All right, so we kind of broke into a couple groups here. The one we looked at was the project about the rowing team. Some of the things that we saw that were good was the way that the things were organized. So, you know, again, always start with a positive, and then you can add in your correction and then end with a positive. So one thing is how they formatted it. The other thing that we kind of discussed, and you might have mentioned this, but the idea of modeling was a little unclear about this, exactly what it was that they were supposed to do. So I looked it up on the internet, and it is a word, feed forward, the other type of different feedback. So feed forward is when you show them what you want ahead of time. So another name for it would be modeling, but feeding forward this would help so that like they know exactly what it is to follow. And then the last part would just be like finding some applications for this and connecting it to the workplace. What type of strategies are shown in this example that the person could use, possibly working in a team situation?
Great, Sam. And you know what I like about especially what you brought up with that one, if we go back again to the concept of scaffolding and we go back to instructor-led, instructor-supported, especially for first and second term courses, the ability for us to give a sample of what a student has perhaps done and use that as a model to help the students, the current students, to complete the assignment really kind of ties into the whole 90, 80, 70, 60% concept. Great. Did anybody at Southtowns pick the math one?
We did. There were three of us in the group, and I guess our biggest query on this was the fact that the student is required to do a PowerPoint presentation, but yet doesn't do a presentation. So we chose number 20 as our feedback, and we would have the students, we as the students would provide feedback to the instructor and ask as to why we would have to do a PowerPoint when we're not presenting it, and how we as students would do it differently, and we would put it in more of a project written format, a report format.
That's a good observation, especially I think the idea when the assessment was created was almost to do it as like a poster presentation. But Maureen, that's a really important point, because what it does is it gives the student a sense of, you know, really the audience as well as the intention of the assignment. And if a PowerPoint's presented, we can kind of ad-lib what's there. On the other hand, if the PowerPoint is just simply the representation of our findings and it's not going to be presented out, that does change how we present information. So that's a really good observation. Great. So let's come over to Amherst. I think you guys were all across the board, right? Andrew, you want to go first?
Well, I think I was bad, obviously. Yeah. I was dealing with this project. What I wanted to understand was if the students understood what the project was about.
Good point.
Because basically it's a kind of in vacuum for them. They don't know where the money comes from, where it goes. They're accountable for it and all that. Mm-hmm. So my emphasis would be the introduction, in the sense that the student pinpoints or at least explains what this is all about. And then I'll also do for the research sections, how research they have done, part of video, labor, part of other things like that.
Yep.
And also in the process, I check it if they are on the proper budgeting process, if the numbers match, numbers tally. Mm-hmm. And then finally, they'll be able to pay back the loan. Mm-hmm. And in many cases, the students were kind of flabbergasted know, the data about students will go to feedback.
Yep.
But I had to explain them how they got to be a little more conscious. That's why I put a project, because many people, you have to pay back in any case.
Yep.
So it's better to be there earlier, you know, rather than later on what happened and all that. But the more important thing was that was, you know, kind of see them whether they understood what all the project is.
Yep.
You know, kind of significance and how they dealt with it, you know, and all things, you know, basically.
That's a great point, and that's something that I know we've talked about both during course review as well as in some various other stages. The ability for us to sit down one-on-one with students and to say, look, I've given you an assignment sheet that tells you what I want you to do with the project, but can you speak back to me about what the expectations are? Because when we have that one-on-one, it really gives us a sense to understand whether the student really understands what we're asking for or whether we need to clarify our directions. So it really goes back to Maureen's point also on that comment number 20, which is where the student provides us with some feedback and it gives us a chance to engage with them and really to clarify what our expectations are. It's a great observation. Others? Amy, what about you?
I did this other
Okay,
whole thing.
yep.
Most of mine was just taking parts that were really good and telling them where to expand, how to make it, you know, just a little bit more meaty, I guess, for a better word. I mean, some of it was critique just based on structure and format, but I kind of found some areas where they did really well, and I said these are the areas you should sort of kind of take and run with those.
Absolutely, and I've sat through assessment workshops before where that's one thing that the facilitator often talks about. We have an occupational hazard as college instructors. And our occupational hazard is whenever anything is given to us, our first place to go to usually is where there are issues. But one of the things that we don't often tend to focus enough on is where the students are actually doing well and giving them that feedback. Confirming you did really, really well here, but this is really where we need you to work on. We tend to have this tendency of going right towards being critical and talking about the issues first. So I love what you did there, Amy, because you really focused in on let's talk about the positives first. We can deal with the other issues later on down the line.
Right.
Great.
Most of them were just structural, so
Absolutely.
easily corrected.
Okay, folks, so let's move forward. So the next activity, if you can take a look at your handout, one of the things that we want to think about are the courses that we're teaching this semester. Because it's still early enough in the semester. We're just coming up to finishing and moving into the second third of the semester. We want to start thinking about the assessments. We want to start thinking about the courses that we're teaching. So I'm going to ask you to do on that handout is to outline your current number of courses that you're teaching. So, you know, AHLT 100, Math 101, Bus 100. So list out all the courses that you're teaching and then list out your major summative assessments that you either have already identified as your ePortfolio assignments or as ones that you could identify as your ePortfolio assignments. And if you are a first-term instructor, your entire assignments, Leah, I'm looking at you because I know your schedule. If you're only teaching first-term courses this semester, which means we're supposed to not use the ePortfolio, that's okay. Identify what you think you would use if you had the ability to have a portfolio assessment in the first term. So take about the next 4 or 5 minutes and do that, folks. Identify your courses and then identify your summative assessments that you could use for the ePortfolio. Okay, folks, so for our last activity today, and this is going to be something we're going to continue to work on into the online faculty meeting, which I'll talk about in a couple minutes. For our last activity for today, last week at our systems assessment meeting, Ann Laurie, who's Director of Institutional Assessment for the College, Vice President now, she talked about how we continue to run data on the ePortfolio to see how much students are using it. And as you guys know, we just finished Middle States. And we got another Middle States visit coming up in about 8 years. One of the things that the college wants to do, Middle States always gives us an opportunity to hit the reset button on how we do assessment. And one of the things the college really wants to move towards is using the ePortfolio system as a way to capture what our students are doing. And also capture the data that institutional assessment uses to look at how the college is performing. So us using the ePortfolio as instructors is going to become even more important than it already is, and it has importance beyond our students having an electronic portfolio at graduation. So it's really important for us to start thinking through strategies that we can employ to make sure that our students are regularly uploading at least one major assessment per class into their ePortfolios. So what I'm going to ask you to do is to partner up with somebody that is at your campus, and if you're connecting remotely, Allie, Lucy, and Lee, I'm looking at you guys. If you could just start brainstorming different strategies, different techniques that you can use to drive our students to that ePortfolio and using it more often to upload some summative assessments. So if you can take about the next 3 or 4 minutes and do that, and then we'll talk about what you came up with, and then we'll talk about next steps. Okay, folks, so let's start remotely first. Allie, if I can put you on the spot, give us 1 or 2 strategies that you thought of that you think we can use to get more students to use the ePortfolio for their assessments.
Well, will there ever be a way for Blackboard and ePortfolio to be connected?
Eventually, yes, they're working on it. We're probably not looking at it within the next year or so.
Well, so, I mean, it would be so much easier if they could just turn things in to one place. I think the reason why there's so much of a disconnect with ePortfolio is because it's not tied to their grade. You know, like they turn it into Blackboard to get their grade, and then they have to like also turn it into ePortfolio. I think that's why it gets tricky, and I think that's why both students and instructors kind of either leave it to the last minute or forget it. I mean, I know I've forgotten in the past to have my students upload to ePortfolio just because it's not like at the front of your mind at the end of the semester when you're getting everything done. I don't know.
No,
So
that's a great comment, and that's something that I've spoken about a couple times when I've been asked about it through Systems FDC, and it's also something I know the deans mentioned last week at the managers meeting, that if there was a way that even just synchronizing the grade, because keep in mind the ePortfolio does have a space in there for us to enter a score for the student based on what they've earned. And if we can figure out a synchronization between both systems, I agree with you. I think that would really help us from a traffic perspective. That's a great observation. Leah, what about you?
I'm not really sure how to answer that question because I haven't had a course with an ePortfolio attached to it.
That's okay.
So I'm not really sure how to answer that one.
That's okay. No, that's good. Lucy, what about you?
Okay, first of all, I think we need to educate some of our instructors because they don't even know how to get into it. They have to know that the students have to log on so that they can populate in your classes. And then once they know where it is, why we're using it, and things like that, then they could maybe take some class time to show students how to actually go in there and use it and to upload their work in there.
That's good feedback, Lucy. I know we've kind of demoed it the last couple of years, but I think to your point, and we now have the ability in ePortfolio to do this, which we didn't have in the past. We could actually set you guys up as students in a test account, and you can actually go through and experience what the students experience when they do an upload. So that's a great point, and we'll definitely work on that going forward. Thank you.
Okay, that sounds good.
Let's go over to Southtown. Southtown, what were some of the suggestions you guys came up with?
Yeah, we've linked them between a grade. I mean, just to second what Allie was talking about earlier, I mean, it is like there's some disconnect between the two systems, but having the upload into ePortfolio as part of the actual grade, or that you don't get to see the grade until it's finally uploaded, and then just making that the final process just to complete the whole system.
Great.
Chris, is there an opportunity to have them upload something to ePortfolio and we provide feedback within that, or is that not an option? It
is. That goes back to Lucy's point, and that's actually part of the reason why we're having this today. The one thing that we're going to be asked to do as we move towards the RX system or the ePortfolio as the way in which we do institutional assessment going forward, not only can the students post the assessment there and we can download it and view it from there, but there's also a comment box that's there as well. So we can actually give the students the feedback that you actually just got done handwriting. You would be able to do that within the ePortfolio system, but this goes back to Lucy's point. We need to train you guys to make sure that you're able to do that. So absolutely.
And is it as nice as it is when you were doing a Dropbox and Blackboard? Does it give us all the Croc Docs, all that stuff to work with, or?
No, that's the only issue that it does not give us, and that's something that even from Systems FTC, I've brought that up. I've mentioned how, I understand the intention and the purpose of us using the ePortfolio, but you're right. Blackboard provides a much cleaner interface and a much more high-tech way to provide feedback. That's an issue that we'll have to work through as faculty as we start using the ePortfolio system more, but that's a good observation, Maureen. Buffalo, any suggestions from you folks?
Hello, we're here. Jennifer, did you want to share what you had? A lot of what we talked about was similar to what's already been mentioned, but.
Yeah, just like Lucy said, I'll be honest, I do not feel confident in ePortfolio at all. I tell the students to push the pin up, but I don't think I'm doing it right. When I try to tell them stuff, I try to go with my instructions, but my screen looks very different than theirs, so it gets very confusing. So there's translation is lost between them and me. And I don't feel that the system is very user-friendly at all. So a lot of times the instructions really kind of are Greek to me. So I think I need some instructions with a lot of screenshots so that I can see what it is that they're supposed to be doing.
Great feedback, Jennifer, and I think all of us from an administrative standpoint will do a couple things going forward. We do have some documents out there that provide some screenshots. We can get those out to you. But to your point, I think the bigger issue for us moving forward, and we'll talk about this among the deans, is to figure out a way that we can get you in a very hands-on classroom lab-based environment to experiences from both sides of the equation, both the experience as a student and also the experience as an instructor. So we'll move forward with that. That's great feedback. Okay, so with that, let's talk about our next steps. So I can just get us out of here on time. So let me get us forward to the next slide. Okay, so the next steps. In late June, each one of the campuses have their second faculty meeting scheduled for the semester. This one will be virtual, as it's been for quite some time, actually. But here's the big difference. The deans have all agreed that rather than doing this second faculty meeting in the individual Amherst, Buffalo, and Southtown's faculty meeting spaces, we're actually going to do this in CIE. We're going to do this in the CIE Blackboard organization that Rick has been doing a phenomenal job of maintaining for us over the years. You'll be able to see a lot of the materials and stuff that he's posted. That is in part why we want to do this. We want to get you guys into the habit of accessing the great stuff that Rick's put in there through CIE. Secondly, though, we're actually going to post the second faculty meeting in the CIE organization. And it's really going to have two pieces, and there's a third that'll be a part of this that I didn't mention here, but I didn't write down here, but I will mention. There'll be two discussion boards. The first discussion board is going to ask you to take what you wrote today, that feedback for that second question, and we're going to ask you to post that to the discussion board, and then we're also going to ask you to go in and look at what your peers commented on and provide some feedback. Now, there are a bunch of faculty that were not able to join us today from all the campuses plus the adjuncts. As I mentioned to you at the start of today's session, this session was recorded, and it will be later on exported to YouTube, and it will be posted through the CIE site for all faculty able to access if they could not make today. So all faculty are going to be expected that they post to this first discussion board, and we can look at other people's feedback and commentary and then provide some collegial feedback on what we have all submitted. The second discussion board is going to tie into what we just got done talking about, and those are ideas and suggestions where we can improve the use of the ePortfolio system in collecting summative assessments, and then I think also to Lucy's point, thinking through additional training areas that we all need as faculty members to be able to better use this. The Western New York academic managers are going to help facilitate these discussion boards. So they'll be going in, kind of like our online instructors do, and they'll be participating just like you guys are as well. The third item that's not listed here is that we will be posting also a survey. And the survey is going to ask faculty a couple questions. The first is, this is the second time that we've done this faculty meeting remotely. And by the way, I'm purposely at Amherst today because I was at Buffalo last time doing this. And the next time we do this, I'm going to be at Southtowns because I do want us to get some experience with a variety of this. We want to get us experience from the faculty members about whether they like doing this through the Skype for Business system. Because if it does, Paul's already talked about some ways in which we can look at some capital improvements to the campuses to do this even better than what we're already doing this. We're right now relying on computers and web monitors and web cameras to be able to do this. And there's an opportunity for us to enhance this and make it even better. We're also going to post in some questions there that relate to some areas that you guys want to work on going forward in the areas of development. We've been developing these last two agendas based upon immediate needs the college has coming out of the faculty meeting and also blended. But we also want to make sure that we're doing these in a way that's addressing some of the challenges that you're experiencing in the classroom. So that survey is going to also ask you that question. We're going to then tabulate that data. We're going to use that data to start making some data-informed decisions about agendas and trainings going into the fall semester. Okay? Before I hop us all off for the day, were there any sort of comments or questions from the faculty or from the campuses? Paul, we got about a minute or two. Is there anything that you want to throw out there?
No, nothing on my end, but I think it kind of summarized that we're trying to enhance kind of the experience. So we'll be looking at that next week.
Great. Thanks, Paul. Okay, folks, so with that, have a great evening, and we'll talk soon. Thanks, folks.